I was talking with a few of the coaches, and we're getting some feedback around just there's a lot of stuff coming at you, a lot of learning and trailheads and stuff. So after today's class, certainly after spring break, we're going to change a little bit of how we present some of the curriculum. It's going to be a little bit more interactive. We are going to assign the homework after we've covered the topic. I think that's going to make it a little easier. And we'll even maybe break out into some small groups. I find that everyone's been doing a really good job from the instructor side, but sometimes it helps to have that back and forth interaction to make sure that we're understanding the concepts, but also we can have a little bit more of a richer dialogue. So in about 2 weeks, certainly after spring break, we'll change things a little bit, but it'll be for your benefit. So just more an awareness there. I'm going to share my screen here. So we are on March 13th today. So we're going to cover data management and how to customize an org. It's a super badge. We'll get started on that. We first have a guest speaker. I'll let Gabriel introduce himself. He's from IBM. And then Trisha will be our instructor and is our veteran office hours person as well. So if we need to stay a little longer, you have questions, Trisha from Omaha, Nebraska will be giving us some information on there. Outside of that, I wanted just to let you guys know that continue to reach out to your coaches. The coaches have their own Slack channel now. We're kind of collaborating on things that we can do to help. If you're falling behind, some of the topics that we've covered, whether it's the configuration or the reports, it can be pretty complicated. I'm actually mentoring a 17-year-old young man in Texas on how to use Salesforce, and I forget how you have to take some baby steps, and so I always try to remember that it seems easier for me, but over time, it'll get easier for you too. With that being said, let me stop sharing my screen here, and I'm going to introduce. Where is he? Where'd he go? Oh, there he is. Wait, like all the tiles move everywhere, and I'm like, where are you going? Mr. Gabriel Noble from IBM, thank you so much, sir, for coming in and guest speaking. We've got several students that are probably close to halfway through with their journey on a lot of the administration trails in Salesforce. And we'd love to hear a little bit about what you have to say, what you do, the market. If you can share a little bit about the jobs, that'll be great. But welcome, and I'll pass it off to you.
Thank you. So my first question is, what do you prefer, Spanish or English?
Students. This is a student
Students.
question.
Yeah.
You can put it in the chat if you want. That's easy.
Yeah, put it on the chat. So, por favor, díganme, puede ser cualquiera de las dos, ¿eh? ¿Qué prefieren? De hecho, no quiero que solo hable yo, porque si no, no tiene mucho sentido. Así que, sin pena, me pueden. Vamos. El primero que diga.
English or Spanish? English?
English. Okay. So let's make it in English. And I believe it's perfect to make it in English because most of the material will be in English. And I will say that the most important thing that you need for in case of Salesforce is that you know English. It doesn't matter if you don't know how to program. I mean, if you are skilled on English, then you have half of the way. Okay, so my name is Gabriel Novo. I'm from Toluca, and I live here in Toluca. And I just want to tell you a little bit about me. When I started working, I studied electronic engineers. So I was thinking of working as a programming. So I started working in Toluca. Then I realized that Toluca doesn't have all the jobs for technology. Most of the jobs are for industry, production, so many plants. But I really like programming. So I started working on a factory, on a Coca-Cola. and the only thing that I do was programming on Microsoft Excel macros. So I didn't like it, and then I realized that the real jobs were in Mexico City. So then I started working in Mexico City, and then I started working for 2 years programming on Visual C++, which is a language that you probably don't know, but that was 23 years ago. So then after that, I was working in a Softec, which is a software company that some of you may know. It's a Mexican software company. And then somebody from Accenture called me because I know how to program on C++. So I changed there. But then instead of working there in programming as a Microsoft C++ programming, I started working with something was called Civil. So in order that you have context of Civil, I would say that Civil is kind of the grandparent of Salesforce. 23 years ago, Civil was the Salesforce of today. Everybody wants to do Salesforce projects, so everyone wants to do Civil projects. Just like today, Salesforce is very demanded, so Civil was really demanded at that time. So the company sent me to San Francisco to learn Civil, and I was there for 3 months. Then I was working there in 3 months in San Francisco, learning Civil. Then I came back to Monterrey for 3 months, and then I was sent to Spain for a civil project. So I spent 9 months in Spain doing a civil project for Alestra, which is a company that you may know who is based here on Monterrey. So I spent 9 months in Madrid programming on civil, and then I came back temporarily for a year in Monterrey. But then instead of being for a year, I spent 6 years there in Monterrey doing civil. So I really like it civil, and I say that I was in love of civil. So I really like it. I enjoy it. I was already married. During this period, I got married. But then when we were going to have kids, we decided to come back to Mexico City, to Toluca, in order that our children grow near our family. So we came back to Toluca, and I started working on Mexico City. And then nobody wants civil. All the civil projects were nobody wants to make it, and then I started doing other kinds of things that weren't related with civil. But then one time, one of my boss that was 6 years ago. On December, my boss came and told me, you need to go to a Salesforce course to Chicago. You need to spend there 1 week in Chicago to learn Salesforce. And I said, no, I don't want to learn Salesforce. It's just like civil is
What year is that?
opportunities.
Sorry to interrupt.
It was December of 2014.
Nice. Okay.
So it was December of 2014. It was cold, very cold in Chicago. I already have 2 kids, so I didn't want to leave my family. When you are young, you want to travel around the world, but when you have kids, you don't want to travel. So your life is going to change. So take advantage while you are young and you want to travel. So they asked me, you need to go to Chicago, and I say, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave my family. It's cold. Salesforce is just like civil with opportunity accounts. That's very boring. I don't want it. But my boss said, if you don't go, the person that was supposed to go didn't have a visa, so we're going to lose the cost of the course. So you need to go because the person didn't have the visa, and we're going to lose money if you don't go. So I was forced to go to the course. And when I took the course, I realized that Salesforce was not like civil. It was much better than civil. It was very powerful. We didn't see anything about opportunity contacts. We make an application for theaters or for cinema or something like that wasn't related with CRM. And I always say that I was in love of civil, but when I met Salesforce stole my heart. So I really like it, and then I came back and I say, I really like it Salesforce. I want to make Salesforce, but we didn't have a practice in Accenture of Salesforce. So I say, I'm the practice leader of Salesforce, and then people ask me, okay, how many people do you have? Well, right now I'm the only one, but I'm going to have more. And then I started learning Salesforce by myself. At that time, we didn't have Trailhead, so it was harder to learn. There were no books. There were just a few materials on internet. And then I started learning Salesforce, and then I started hiring people and training people. So I I tried to sell my first Salesforce project. I tried to hire people. I tried to hire people like you that didn't know Salesforce but is eager to learn. So were eager to learn. So I bring them I bring into my company. They were some employees, and I invite them. So I was working in another project that wasn't related with Salesforce, and then at the end of my day, around 7 p.m., I started doing Salesforce interviews. So I started building my practice, and then I start selling projects. I grow it, and at the end, I left Accenture with 80 resources. So from 0 to 80 resources I would say in 5 years, I believe it's quite good in terms of growth. We were probably the technology that grow faster in that time. I mean, there are some technologies that are very consolidated. For example, SAP, if you start learning SAP, there are many people with SAP. SAP has been in the market for many years. So it's harder to make an SAP now rather than Salesforce. So I mean, you're on the right time to start doing Salesforce. And then I really like it, but then the things that didn't work it very well is that I wasn't reaching the targets of my company. No, my company really want me to sell many thousand millions of in terms of projects, but I didn't reach it, so I wasn't promoted, or I was not going to be promoted. So I didn't want. I feel I wasn't growing, and I was in the same company for 19 years. That was Accenture. So I felt that I was kind of stuck in my career. And I decided that it was a time for movement. During this time, I have great opportunities. For example, with Salesforce, I spend, I teach many courses in US. I also teach a course in Spain to many students from different parts of Europe. So I would say that Salesforce bring me a lot of opportunities in terms of career, interesting work. But I wasn't growing as I expected. So I decided that it was the time to leave my company. So I managed to leave my company, and then after that I spent 3 months. That was from July of 2019, and then I spent 3 months deciding what I was going to do with my life. So I have a lot of interviews. Since I knew Salesforce, everybody offered me a jobs. It was very easy to find different offers. So the big companies, most of the ones that you are talking, which probably is Accenture, PwC, Deloitte, IBM, all the big companies, even I would say Salesforce has kind of two worlds. Has the small companies very dedicated to Salesforce, so like the one that you probably know, like Certica or Globan or Freeway, those very specific companies that are very Salesforce specific. I would say that's one of the market for Salesforce, and the other market is the company like IBM, Accenture, who has thousands of employees around the world, and not necessarily everybody is doing Salesforce. I mean, we are doing SAP, we are doing other kinds of technology, and there is some part that we are doing Salesforce. So I would say that's what parts of what type of the company where you can work after you leave, after you learn Salesforce. So I was looking I enjoy being on big companies. And then I got an offer from New Zealand. So I got an offer from New Zealand from a small company, and then I also got an offer from IBM. So at the end, I need to decide between going to New Zealand with my family or staying on Mexico and IBM. And in IBM, the job was just like the one that I started doing in Accenture. They told me, there is no practice of IBM. You will need to teach people. You will need to sell projects. You will need to deliver projects. And I say I was kind of lazy because I need to start doing the same what I was doing, teach people, deliver a project with people that is doing for the first time, create a practice. So I wasn't very convinced of doing what I was doing on Accenture, but it was but it was a big company, and the other thing was a small company in New Zealand with a small with possibilities of doing always Salesforce. So at the end I decided for IBM because I'm kind of adverse to the risk. So I decided that I prefer to stay in a bigger company. I have a family. I also start doing researching of the cost of living in New Zealand, and it's very expensive. I mean, I was going to live in a small meters, but I need to pay a lot. And since we are 40, it was kind of difficult. But definitely, if I were younger, just like you, I definitely will take that kinds of opportunities. Moving to another country, living in another country, I will say that it's kind of the things that Salesforce can provide you. So at the end, I decided to join IBM, and then I started doing the practice on IBM. So I started doing just the same thing that I did in Accenture. I start hiring people like you that were trained on Salesforce. I usually hire people. My only requirement is that they have good English skills, and they are willing to work on anything. Because on your daily work, you may programming on Salesforce, you may configure, but you also may need to do some translation. You may need to do some Word documents, some meeting minutes. I mean, you need to be eager and willing to work in any kind of work. Not everything will be just like as fun as Trailhead. You need to be willing to do all kinds of things. So that's my only requirement. When I have people, are you willing to do everything? And they say yes. And then do you have English skills? And that's my only requirement. So I started a practice on IBM. That was on October of 2019. And right now we are around 35 people. So we are, I believe that in a year and a half, we grow from 0 to 35, which I believe is really good. We're always growing. We have our first stage projects, and I'm doing exactly what I was doing in Accenture of growing our practice. And I definitely find very rewarding. I really enjoy see people that weren't skilled on Salesforce, and then after 1 year or 2 years, they are very skilled, and I seen incredible things. I believe Salesforce is a fascinating platform. It's not only CRM. I see I see how Salesforce is growing. I'm really happy that you are learning Salesforce. I'm sure you won't regret of learning Salesforce. The only thing that you need to consider is that right now there is kind of a wave of Salesforce, and this will not be eternal. Probably will be for 20 or I don't know how long he's going to last this way. But you are on the right time to start it. I learned Salesforce, and definitely opening many careers. Even when I'm working right now, every week I got on offers from different places. Right now, with all the pandemic things, it doesn't matter where you are. So that open also the possibilities. Salesforce is so broad that you can learn anything. I mean, if you like programming, you can do programming. If you like e-commerce, you can do e-commerce. If you like marketing, you can do marketing. If you like custom development, you can do custom development. I mean, you can apply Salesforce to anything in not necessarily business things. If you want to help somebody, there is Salesforce for organizations. It's so broad as possibilities that you have. That definitely it's something that I highly recommend you. I mean, if you bet to learn Salesforce, that definitely is going to open you many possibilities that you won't imagine. I definitely would like that if any of you are willing to learn Salesforce and take the disciplines to self-study and to take advantage of this opportunity that you are having, definitely you can contact me anytime. It's easy right now by Facebook, by LinkedIn to find me. And definitely, if you are interested on working with me, I definitely will very happy to have some of you on my team. And anything you need, just feel free to contact me. I definitely I'm a believer that Salesforce is the right technology to bet, and definitely can provide you a lot of satisfaction. At least for me, provide me always interesting works, opportunities to travel. I've been on Dreamforce like four times. Dreamforce was the biggest event. Right now it's suspended because the pandemic, but it's an event in San Francisco where there are more than 150,000 assistants, which is the biggest event in in technology. And for example, Salesforce, you probably know, but it started in a small department, just like many histories that you know, that all of you know, and right now has the biggest building in San Francisco. So those I would say that's kind of the reflection of what's happening with Salesforce. And definitely, the only thing you need to do is English and the disciplines to study instead of doing playing video games or Netflix. I mean, of course, it's important to have those balance, but at least the people that I see grow are the people that are willing to make some sacrifice to learn in additional in additional effort. But that definitely is something that if you take the time to study, definitely is going to open you a lot of possibilities. And basically, that's my history. I will say that I've been doing on the Salesforce for 6 years. Some of people that you may know, like Pedro Teniente or Daniel Herrera, are people that work together. We work in several projects together. And I'm sure that since Salesforce is a small world, I would love that we meet today, but I will definitely would love to meet you in the future in the Salesforce ecosystem. I would say that it's a small world, and definitely it will be great to be with you in a project or see you grow in the Salesforce.
Excellent.
So that's basically my history.
Thank you.
I don't want to take much more time, but
No,
feel
that's
free to ask me
fine.
any question that you have.
I have a question. First of all, thank you.
Yeah.
What are for people that are still learning the job market? What are the entry level jobs look like? And without revealing any too much, but what are we looking at average salary, just so that people kind of understand that this is more than just this is a pretty big career and life change if you can land a good job.
Okay, so you mean job salaries in
just an average job
Salesforce?
salary, in Salesforce in Mexico for a new person coming into the market. Not just something average, so that people can have an idea
Okay.
of what that would look like.
Yeah, I will say that most of the people that start working on IT start on the base salary. So in Accenture we call them programmers or analysts, which is the base, is the initial career. On IBM, we have another instead of many people start as students, and then they start as an analyst or programmers too. So I would say that the initial salaries, I would say that are around in terms of US dollars monthly will be like I will say that a salary will be between $700 to $1,000 monthly. So that's, I would say that's an initial rate for. I would say that the initial rates are the same for all IT jobs. I mean, if you start working on, if you're not skilled on Salesforce, then you will start having this kind of salary. But then what's happening is that once you learn Salesforce, you become valuable to the market. So usually people start with this type of salary, but I have seen that after 2 years of doing Salesforce, they probably are on 1,500 or 2,000 salary. So probably after 2 or 3 years, you double the salary. And what I have seen also, that people that have, for example, more than 5 years, they are higher. They are earning in Mexico like 4,000 US dollars by month. So people that has more like that 5 years are higher than 4,000, and people that have 7 years, for example, are earning more than 10,000. So I will say that will depend on you. For example, if you don't have any certification, then you will probably will start lower. But once you become certified, you become valuable. My assumption is, I understand you are starting with admin. Maybe we'll start at builder or development. So my suggestion is, if you get certified, don't get stuck in only one certification. I mean, there are more than 30. So if you are, I mean, there are various statistics. There is an email, probably you're aware, but you can send an email to Artisan, which is a company that manages the certifications, and you will see the numbers. Are you familiar with that?
The different certifications?
No? No, let me show you.
Yeah,
So
if you
let
have it.
me show you. Okay. Let me share my screen. Let me know when you saw it.
Yep, it's coming up right now.
Okay. Okay. So now can you see this email of Artisan?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but you send an email to an. I'll send you the. I'm going to write you. Once you get certified, you can send your email with your web assessor, which is the page for certification, and then you will get how you rank in terms of the rest of the work. So this email is from November, so it's kind of it's not updated. But for example, in my case, I have five, 5 certifications. So I have admin, community, Einstein sales, and commerce. And then it tells you how many people are in the work, for example, with admin. So the certification that you are pursuing has this 87,000. So if you only get with this certification, you are competing against this amount of people, which is a lot in the world. So it will be very difficult that you differentiate from them. In Mexico, for example, in November, we're only 300.
Wow.
And in Mexico, in the state of Mexico, we're only 78. And in Metepec, which is the place where I live, it's only which is me. So these are the ones. So these are the certification that you have. So don't. I mean, this will not be enough if you only get certified on this. So my recommendation, if you like programming, go for the developer one, which is it's a guarantee that you will have very demand. And then here is the rest. And then you get how many people. So, for example, in my case, I didn't know anything about commerce, so I decided that I want to learn commerce because it was a new word to me. So I got certified in this commerce cloud application, which is here. So I got certified, and in the world there are like 1,300. In Mexico, there were 3 person, and in Metepec, 1, which is me. So I'm happy to say that I'm one of the 3 certified in Mexico with this certification. And the other one that I have is Einstein Analytic. Is not very common, so there were 6 on November, and I'm one of these. And this is very useful. It provides you the ranking. So I'm on the 32,000 of 170. In Mexico, I'm on the 100 of 40 certified people. I'm the one. I'm the number one in Mexico,
Number
which is
one
the
where
only
you
one
live.
who in live. And here you're going to find some people, some dates. For example, with 32 certifications, globally there is 1 person, or there was 1 person of November. With 30, there were 2 person. For example, in Mexico, at that time, the person who has more certification has 16 certification. This probably changed.
Wow.
So I have 5. So I'm one of the 30 person in Mexico who has 5 certification, and with 1 certification, there is 150. So I definitely would like you to be this part of statistics. And here is the name of the people. You probably
Grisel.
know.
We know
I believe
Grisel.
Grisel.
Yeah.
It's helping you, right?
Mhm.
She just was recognized as a MVP.
MVP.
So you probably know some of them. And here is the rank. I do not appear because I'm on the 100. But I mean, it's very interesting. The people. So I'm on the 16 on my state, I believe. Yeah, in the state of Mexico, I am on the 16. I mean, this is our statistics. I'm going to send you. Let me give you let
So
me
we
give you
just have to opt in to
I'm going
the
to
email.
write.
Is that right? Like we email that
Yeah,
address?
yeah, yeah. let me put you on the chat the email that you need to send. You just need to send an email. I believe is let me see. I believe this one.
Yeah, I've never seen that. That's pretty cool. And
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Just for those of y'all who are wondering, the top of the food chain, the very top, is the certified technical architect, and there's only 300 in the world. I think I saw on there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and their average salary here in the U.S. is $275,000 to $400,000 a year, and probably higher. They're really, but it's a difficult. It takes years to get there, but I will never get there.
Yeah, I for me it's also kind of
it's not something I'm aiming for. While he's typing this up, are there any other questions for Gabriel? No questions? Okay. I did have one more. You can just forward, if you want to forward it to me, if you have my address, and then I can.
It's this one, I believe. It's this one. Yeah. You need to send an email to this address with your web assessor account.
I see.
And that's you send it, and then you that's the one that you have, and just to recap, the certified technical architect, which just like they mentioned, there are 370. That was in November. Now there are more, but yeah, that's my. I hope it's when you got certified. I hope you continue with your certifications.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I've never seen that. So for those of y'all who see that email, you probably need to get your first certification because you may not show up yet. However, it is a really compelling thing. I didn't know that there were, 300 admins, and like the desire and the need is a lot more for that. If you recall that first slide I think I presented, where how many jobs there are in Mexico for this technology in the future, I think it was 20, 30,000. You do the math, there's 300 admins according to this. There's going to be a bigger demand. So I don't think there's any more questions, Gabriel. I really appreciate your time. This has been super helpful. What I would like to do is make sure that the students connect with you. I'll send your LinkedIn. I just tried to connect with you, make sure it's yours. And then perhaps towards the end, obviously, if you're looking for hiring anybody or doing any kind of internship or apprenticeship, let us know. We've got some pretty solid rock stars here, but they're still learning. But would love to stay in contact with you.
Great. Perfect. Happy to work with you at some time. And thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Have a good Saturday.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. All right. So I am going to add myself to that email. I learned something today too. So thank you for listening in. Now I'm going to pass it off to Omaha and Trisha to talk about data management and share a little bit about her knowledge. Please chime in with any questions. Like I said, probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll change the format. We may break out into rooms, and we may change a little bit. But right now, we're going to do it the same way. And we're excited to have Trisha here. So it's all yours.
All right. So I haven't had coffee yet this morning, so we'll see how well this goes. I'm going to start sharing. Okay. Can everybody see my slides?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So, and let me put these in present mode. Oops, messed up. Okay, so I'm Trisha Ponce, and just to give you guys some background, and I already prefaced this, I speak in Spanglish. Mi familia es de El Salvador, y ellos vinieron a Estados Unidos en los 80s. Yo nací en Los Ángeles y vivo en Omaha, Nebraska, que es literal el centro del país, entre Denver, que es una ciudad que muchas personas conocen, Chicago, que es otra ciudad también que muchas personas conocen. Yo estoy en medio. Entonces, cuando Gabriel estaba hablando de Chicago, sí hace mucho frío, and I feel bad that he had to go there in the cold. But yeah, I spent some time in la Ciudad de Mexico. I still work for Union Pacific, which is a railroad. El ferrocarril en México, con el que más trabajábamos era Ferromex, or Kansas City Southern de Mexico. If you've ever seen them, they're the trains that go by all the time. So yeah, that's a little bit of background about me and kind of where I've been. The last 2 years, I've been in Omaha, supporting a smaller subset of our company called Loop Logistics. It's a logistics company. Kind of, instead of just the railroad, we provide trucking services. And my background is not in IT. I didn't study anything in IT. I studied accounting. So I went into Salesforce with a salesperson's mindset because I had moved from accounting to doing sales. And so becoming an admin or taking these sort of classes was very new to me. And if I can do it, I think anybody can do it. You know, it's not difficult. It doesn't require a lot of coding knowledge. So keep that in mind. So yeah, I've been at this company. I was sent to a certification course in October of 2019. And it was 1 week, 8 to 5 p.m. that I was completely immersed in Salesforce, which for me was very helpful, right? I didn't have time to go binge Netflix or to go see my friends or anything. I was in another city and I had to like learn this stuff within 1 week because there was nobody else at my company that had any Salesforce certifications, and we were going to be implementing Salesforce. We used to use Siebel CRM, which Gabriel mentioned before. And same as him, as soon as we went into this class, I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. This is so much better than Siebel CRM, because from a salesperson, I knew kind of how difficult it was to use the old system. So anyway, it was a 1 week intense course. So for you guys get this spread out over some time. So I think it's easier to digest. It's very helpful. But after one week course, I had to do self-studying, and then I passed my Salesforce, the admin certification, about 3 weeks later. It took 3 more weeks of still intense studying so that I could pass that exam. So I'm here today, and we're going to talk over data management, which is basically importing, exporting. How do you change, the data that's in your Salesforce org? And then we'll go through customizing an org. So what are some of the business cases where somebody might come to you and say, hey, I need to make this change. Can you help me? You're the Salesforce admin. Help me make this change in the system. So I've got some stopping points. I expect you guys to interact with me, please. I don't want to talk by myself the whole time. So we'll get started. Okay. So managing data, again, like I mentioned, this is really easy. You have data you're going to import into the system. You have data you want out of the system. You want, to export that. And then in here, you're going to be probably updating records, transferring records, and deleting records. So you've already done this in your classes, right? You know how to go in and create an account and create an opportunity and create a lot of those things. So what this is mostly focused on is what do you do when you have multiple records that you need to work with. So relating back to 2 classes ago for you guys, an object is basically what? A really complicated database, something you purchase at the store, or a table of data with rows and columns. Tell me in the chat if you don't want to shout it out. What is it? That's right. It is a table of data with rows and columns. That's all it is, right? It's a spreadsheet of data. So as you learned in your class a couple of weeks ago, the columns represent the fields and then the rows represent the records. So one record is basically one line in a spreadsheet, right? If you're thinking about it that way. Okay, so somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I have this whole spreadsheet, all of these records. Can you please put it into Salesforce? What are you going to do? Sí, claro, I can do that for you. Are you going to go one by one and enter each record? No, you'd spend hours doing that, right? So you don't want to do that. So there's an easier way. Basically, once you have kind of that spreadsheet of data, of information, there's two really good tools that you have in Salesforce to import. One is the data import wizard, and the other one is data loader. And if you want to find these, all you have to do is in your quick find tool in here, just type in data, and you'll start getting anything related to data. You can easily get to these. So we'll talk about data import wizard first, because it's the, I would say, easier to use, the most friendly tool that you can use. You can insert records into standard objects and some custom objects. You have 3 steps. You choose the data that you're going to upload. You edit the mapping, so you tell it, hey, when I say address, I mean shipping address or billing address. And then you tell it where it's at, and you start importing that. Okay, so this is another view of the data import wizard. Again, here we've selected, we're going to insert some new accounts. You have the option here to match the contacts or match the accounts. So that helps you figure out if you have any duplicates in your system. And you have an option to trigger workflow rules and processes. So does anybody remember the difference between, and I think you've already covered it, a validation rule and a workflow rule? Anyone? So in a validation rule, you're validating the information, making sure that somebody has filled out everything that they were supposed to. So those run before you save a record. And those are going to run on anything you import, whether it's through the data import wizard or not. If you miss something or you put something incorrectly, it won't save, because your validation rule is catching it and saying, hey, you didn't enter this field that you need to have. Workflow rules are different. Those are usually triggered when you already save the new record or you update a record. So you have the option here to trigger that or not trigger that, yes or no. And then pretty easily, you just drag your CSV file here, or you look it up, and you can start importing. So some of the limitations with Data Import Wizard is that you can only go up to 50,000 records. If you need to import more than 50,000 records, which I hope you don't have to do too often, you're going to have to use a different tool. Also, what do you guys see here? It only allows some objects. Do you see any objects that are missing? Feel free to type it in the chat. We got standard objects. So we have accounts, we have contacts, we have leads, solutions, and campaign members. What's missing that you've talked about? Feel free to type it in the chat. I can give you hints, but I'm going to give you a little bit. How about one that starts with an O? There you go, opportunities. That's it. That's one. There's another one, it starts with a C, that I think you've already worked with too.
Case.
Cases, that's right. Thank you. So opportunities and cases, for example, are two things that are not here. And the reason that is because an opportunity or a case has to be tied to an account or a contact, right? So you can't, this tool will not let you create that or import that via this tool, because you have to have the accounts and the contacts first. So good catch, that's missing. there's no way to automate this. So whenever you want to do something, you have to go into the wizard, open it, upload your CSV file, and click a button to import. And we already talked about there's ways to match your contacts or accounts, and the workflows are optional. So those are a couple of things there on data import. Okay. So another way, and we'll get more into the tools in a little bit, but another way you can import data is data loader. So this is, there's an online version, and there's one that you actually have like in your desktop that you open up and you can use data loader. So again, we have insert function right here. You can also update, upsert, and delete, export, and export all. We'll talk a little bit about those towards the end, but we're gonna focus just on inserting right now because that's what we're talking about. Okay, so this one looks a little bit different, and you've got a bunch of different objects here. This one you can do up to 5 million records, so a lot more records than you can with Data Import Wizard. You'll see all objects. So here's opportunity, and here's case. Those were some that were missing. You can also see this button says show all Salesforce objects. So if they're not all there, you click that button and you should get everything. So it has more capabilities, and you can insert records into more objects. You can also automate your imports. There's a way to like set these up, and I've never done it, so just know that it's possible because I won't be able to show you that. But there's ways to automate your imports to where you have a file and it's pulling from that file regularly. And in this one, you don't have the option to not trigger the workflows. So if every time you create a new account, you have a workflow that says, I need to send an email to somebody, what's going to happen if you insert 5 million records? How many emails are you going to send? Or is your workflow going to send? 5 million, right? So that's not going to make anybody happy if you send them 5 million records. Jazz inserted account XYZ 5 million times. So they don't want to see that. So what you have to remember is what workflows you have, and you have to go in via setup and manually disable those workflow records if you want to avoid that. So can anybody tell me, how does it compare, just based on those two slides, high level, what can you tell me that compares between Data Import Wizard and Data Loader? Anyone? I see typing. Definitely the record quantity, yes. 50,000 versus 5 million, right? Very big difference. What else? I see more typing.
You guys can speak up too.
The object types, yes. The object types también. ¿Qué más? Okay, I'm comfortable with silence, but I want us to keep moving along too. So the other ones you can automate. One you can automate, the other one you can't. And one you have the option to turn off workflows, and the other one you don't, right? And one thing to remember is the validation is always going to hit you. So I had it ready for you, but thank you for providing those answers. So when you're deciding which tool to use, you have to think about the number of records that you're importing. Do you want to be able to catch duplicates? Because the Data Import Wizard does have some matching availability there for you. Do you want to turn off, do you need to turn off workflows? If so, do you have that option, or do you need to go in and do it manually? Can you export data? Data Import Wizard won't let you export data. So pretty intuitive there, but Data Loader will. So if you needed to export data, you'd have that. The objects available, you have some in Data Import Wizard. You have all in Data Loader. And then cases and opportunities, that was a really good catch. And probably the two most common ones, you can't import those in Data Wizard, but you can in Data Loader. Okay. Okay, so you're gonna have to unmute at some point, because what are you gonna do in this scenario? You have a sales team that wants you to upload a list of leads into Salesforce so they can assign and have their reps call on them. They gave you a CSV file, thank you very much, and it has 45,000 records. What are you going to use? And feel free to type it in the chat. You have two options. Data loader, okay. That'd be the easiest way to go, but you'd have less than 50,000 records. So it'd be a slightly easier way. You can actually use any of them. So it would be Data Import Wizard. That'd be the easiest way, because you have less than 45,000 records, and leads is one of the ones that you can insert there. So make it a little bit easier for you guys. What about this one? Your team is migrating from Siebel CRM, an old system, to Salesforce, and they gave you 25,000 open cases that they're still working on that they need to be migrated into the new system. What would you use there? So things you have to look at, right? What object are we inserting? How many records are we inserting? Anybody in the chat? I see you thinking. Yes, data loader, because we're talking about the case object. Good job. Yeah, because you can't do that in data import, right? So even though you have less than 50,000 records, you're inserting cases. So that's important. Good job. Okay, and the next one, your company is merging with another company. So you got two companies, you want to push them into one, and their accounts need to be migrated into Salesforce. They have about 100,000 account records. What is the easiest way? And let's pretend you already checked for duplicates. You don't need to dedupe. So it's clean, it's ready to go. You just need to insert it. What tool would you use? Data loader, that's right. Yep, that's what you would use, because it's more than 50,000 records and it's accounts. So great job. Okay, so a lot of times you're gonna get a spreadsheet and somebody's gonna send this to you and they're gonna say, okay, insert these records for me because I don't wanna have to go through and do them one by one. And you have the ability, you have the power to do this, do more than one record at a time. And they give you this. What do you see that might be wrong with this? Yeah, you have a .Mexico in there. That doesn't seem right. What else? If you're trying to standardize how, and maintain your data quality. Yep, DF and DF, you have it with periods, you have it without. Plenty of mistakes in here, guys. So feel free to point out any of them. I put a lot. Yeah, Calif and California, that's right. That's a good one. and then CDMX, Ciudad de Mexico, Los Angeles, and LA. Exactly. It's crazy. People will send that to you. And then how is somebody going to search? If they're searching for accounts that are in Los Angeles, they're going to get these two, but they're not going to get this one. If they're looking for Ciudad de Mexico, they're going to get only one and not these. Same thing, right? With state and country, all of those. So you want to have that data be clean, right? So that's kind of the message here. Before you insert anything, make sure that you clean up the data. And this, it might take you a little bit in Excel. Hopefully it's not too many records, but use the find, lookup, replace, and change all of these to be the same, to one kind of convention, because otherwise you're gonna be putting, if you don't put clean data into your system, it's not gonna make it easy for users to be able to search, okay? There's one more thing that I'll tell you here. Because we're inserting records, you'll also notice that there's no record ID, because a record ID gets created by Salesforce when you insert a new record into the system. So because these have not been in Salesforce before, we don't have a record ID. And I'll show you where that makes sense later on. Okay, so now we're ready, right? We chose our data, and now we have to tell it what we're trying to map. And before we can start our import, because you have an address, city, state, country fields, but you have shipping address and you have billing address, or maybe you have some other kind of weird address. And so you need to know what exactly it's looking for. So within data import, here, it's pretty easy. You click a button and you tell it address means this. You might have this one in Spanish and it says ciudad, and you need to make sure that it maps to the city field. Your data can come through with different column names, and you have to tell Salesforce via the data import wizard what you're trying to do. Yeah, and Barbara just mentioned in the chat, for data loading, it's important to know how to find and replace and use some formulas in Excel. Because yeah, you'll get a big spreadsheet and people have made mistakes and you got to fix it for them before you put it in the system. It's just part of your role as managing the data for the organization in Salesforce. Okay, so once we have it mapped, then you just start your import. It's pretty easy. And we'll go through some examples here. I'll show you how to do that. But let's move on for a second, and we're going to talk about updating. So when you're updating information, you're assuming that the record is already in Salesforce. You already created it. Look at that. It's all clean. Ciudad de Mexico, Los Angeles. We got the two-digit or two-character states. The country looks right. Beautiful. We inserted that data, and then Salesforce gave us an account ID field, right? An ID field for account. So this is your key anytime you want to make changes or update. So if somebody's address was wrong, then you could update it using this ID. And we'll go through an update as well in our demo. Okay, and then there's another function called Upsert. And this is mostly, I believe you use it in Data Loader a lot, but this is when you're updating some records, but you're also adding new records. And what differentiates that is that you have an ID for the ones that you're updating, but you don't have an ID for the ones that are new. So when you're putting this into the system, it'll know, hey, I got an ID, so I need to find the one that already exists and update whatever I'm being told to update. If I got nothing there, I'm creating something new and assigning it an ID. So hopefully that gives you a very high-level overview of importing and updating in Data Import Wizard. And then there's some data type considerations. If you have a field, you have to think about what fields you're updating, right? Is it a text field? Is it a formula field? Is it a checkbox? Is it a date time? All of those things. So if you have a pick list, there are going to be options that say, what do you want to do if the pick list value that you're entering does not meet the criteria for that field or the options that you have set out. So always check that. Make sure that you have it right matching one of your pick list values. That's very helpful. If you have a multi-select pick list, you can import multiple values, but you have to separate them with a semicolon, right? And then for checkboxes, you can't obviously check a box and upload that. You have to either put a 1 for checked or a 0 to leave it unchecked. And then the date time fields, check the format, make sure that you're importing, in the way that those are formatted. In formula fields, you can't actually import because formula fields are calculated already in Salesforce, right? They're read only. So unless you're changing the formula, that field's going to just calculate on its own. You don't need to import any values into it. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. Are there any other questions on Data Import Wizard? Okay, and I'll recap with these, again, considerations. Whenever you're importing, clean up your import files as much as possible. The validation rules still matter. So if you're missing something, you'll just get a big error message that says, hey, guess what? We didn't save this because you didn't do it right. And then you have to go back and enter the right information or whatever was missing to get it saved. And validation rules run before a record is saved. So it kind of stops you and says, I'm not going to do it for you. Workflow rules, they run after the record is saved. So if you have some rule that says send an email to somebody, in Data Import Wizard, you can turn it off. But in Data Loader, it will be triggered unless you go in and you turn off that rule and then turn it back on after you import. So, okay. Any questions on that? Okay.
I had a quick question, just from a business perspective. What do businesses mostly use this for? Is this for, what kind of data would you normally import? Like contact data, account data?
So in my world, we do it a lot for leads. Hey, we got, we bought some database over here and we got all of these leads that we want our sales team to call on. So can you put them all into the system, right? And I'll get, multiple records at a time. Also, a lot of times for me, like sometimes our business process has changed slightly. We added a new field and we have all of these old records from last year that we want to report on with that field. So I have to go back and update that field for prior records. It's a lot of data cleanup, but I'd say business case, a lot of times it's leads that you're importing that will eventually become an account and then opportunities and all of that, or contacts if you have a ton of contacts to add for the company. But
that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. Oh, Barbara says acquisitions. Yeah. So if you're getting another firm in and you need to bring all of the data from that company, you have to do it this way. You're not going to go in and do it one by one, right? But somebody's going to expect you to do it. So they're going to be like, here you go. Aquí está el Excel. And you're like, sí, claro, I can do that. But no, you won't have.
Here you have all the Excel sheets. Like
Huh?
you get to import everything: accounts, contacts, opportunities, leads, custom objects, thousands of records, thousands of tasks,
Yeah,
hundreds of thousands of tasks. So yeah.
I did this early in my career, and then over the summer between jobs, I volunteered at a nonprofit and migrated their data. It was like 5,000 records, accounts, contacts, everything. And I learned again so much about like data types if it's the wrong format. And so this is an exercise that definitely requires attention to detail, because if it's not right, it'll some records will fail to get imported. And it has to be a certain format, like you said, Trisha, like if you need to report off of it or there's a new field. So while this is not the sexy part of Salesforce, it is probably one of the more critical parts, because of if your customers don't trust the data, doesn't matter how shiny the new object is in Lightning, they're not going to use it as much. And so the data part is actually really, really critical.
Yep. There's a hand raised.
Buenos días, Trisha.
Yeah.
Oye, es una pregunta. En las prácticas que hemos estado haciendo, hemos estado introduciendo contactos, objetos, ¿no? Ahí me queda la duda, porque aquí estamos viendo la importación de datos, pero mi duda queda en si solo el administrador puede agregar contactos o también, por ejemplo, los miembros de tu organización, y cómo controlas que, por ejemplo, Trisha y yo pues somos miembros, ¿no? Pero yo agrego un contacto y le pongo LA, y luego usted agrega uno y le pone Los Ángeles, ya va a estar en la base de datos de Salesforce, ¿no? No sé si me explico con la pregunta de cómo, o sea, no importándolo desde un Excel, sino agregándolo uno por uno, por ejemplo. Cuando usted exporte va a ver que por ejemplo, usted le puso LA y yo le puse Los Ángeles. Ahí, ¿cómo controlamos eso? No sé.
Vas a usar, I'm not sure with the city, but what comes to mind is you put in un validation rule, right? So, un validation rule dice, si tú no pones información como yo te la estoy pidiendo, no voy a guardar tu record. Entonces, como usuario, como persona de ventas o quien sea, si van y introducen un record y lo tratan de no se va a guardar porque tu rule dice que no has hecho algo bien.
Gracias.
Okay, so let's move on, and then we're going to talk about, okay, so managing data. The next piece we're going to talk about is exporting, okay? And you can export via report, right? But what if you get asked to export all of the information in your organization, like all of the records, because you're going to be going through some big update, or your company is getting acquired and you want to like put all of the data that's in your Salesforce system somewhere where they can then import it. So let's talk through exports. You don't want to do that one by one, tampoco. Okay, so we have two options for that as well. We can do it. And if you just, again, quick find data, you're going to get all of these options and you're going to be able to choose from there. There's a data export monthly service where you can schedule it. I use this because when my company first started using Salesforce, we didn't have a good backup process, and we actually got rid of a whole team. So they're like, hey, Trisha, we need you to go in and delete everything that was related to that team out of Salesforce. And I'm like, well, what if I do something wrong? I need to back up that data and be able to have something to fall back on, because I am a new admin. I've only been trained on this for a couple of months, and you're telling me to delete all the data. I don't want to do that. So I scheduled monthly export service. So this is basically a way to take a copy of everything that you have in Salesforce, all of the records, and save them somewhere else. And you can have this run on a monthly basis. So you can either do the export now, which will do it instantly, or you can do the schedule export and say, on the first of every month, I want to get a backup of all of my data that's in the system. And when it does that, it gives you a couple of days, I think, to actually download the files. If you're just saving them somewhere, I want to say it's 48 hours, 72 hours. And then, you can save that somewhere else. So that's one option, and you can schedule it. And another option is data loader. You have the ability to export, and then you have the ability to export all in here as well. And this is very, very important. Anytime you're going through a major change, you want to make sure that you have, you have your data backed up somewhere, right? So it's a really cool tool that to have in your toolbox. Okay, so we've talked about importing, exporting, updating, and upserting. So the two things we haven't really talked about are transferring and deleting, okay? And those are basically, we talked about import, export, update. Transfer and delete are the two things that basically give you all the power for all of the data, okay? So this is a lot of power to be able to mass delete, transfer, update, do things like that. So if you look up mass, that means like many, right? You're not doing one by one, you're doing thousands of records. You can delete, you can transfer approval requests, which is something that we're not going to get into too much, but you can transfer records and update addresses. When somebody moves from their job to another job, you can, change them out of that role or inactivate somebody, and you will get an option to transfer their records. That's one by one. If all of a sudden, you got rid of a whole team and you're bringing in a whole new team, you can transfer records, or you're changing the assignments. You can transfer all of the records that person A owns to person B, right? So that's maybe where you would use transfer records. Delete records, like in my case, that's what I was asked to do. We got rid, a month after we were in Salesforce, we rolled out Salesforce, we got rid of a whole business unit. And they're like, hey, we don't really need all of the data that was in there. It's just going to create noise. So I had to export all of that data, keep a backup of it somewhere so that, if we ever needed it, I have it, but delete it out of Salesforce. So, and then for addresses, if you needed to fix addresses, you could actually use mass update addresses as well. That's another tool to solve problems like what we saw in the beginning. Okay, so with great power, you have great responsibility. Important things whenever you're using any of these tools, make sure that you have a backup of your data. So run an export before you delete or transfer records. Run reports. Try to know ahead of time how many records you're going to impact, right? Because if you run a report and it says, hey, you only need to update 5,000 records, and then you go and you delete 10,000 records, something is wrong, right? Or if you delete 2,500 records and there's 2,500 you did not delete. So important to know, okay, this should impact 5,000 records, and run reports to figure that out. And then think through what happens to associated records. If you're deleting opportunities, are there any tasks related to that? What's going to happen to those? If you're deleting accounts, what happens to the contacts? So always think through, because one change could impact other things downstream. Okay. All right. Any questions?
Hola, Trisha. Oye, por ejemplo, a veces he usado programas para exportar datos, pero a veces cuando estoy exportando datos se traban por la cantidad de datos que le exporté, ¿no?
Uh-huh.
Entonces, aquí hay alguna, por ejemplo, tú puedes exportar 1 millón de datos quizás, o hay algún tamaño de archivo que deba de cuidar para que no crear algún mezclado o algo.
Creo que tiene que ver con los límites de cuántos datos tienes en tu org. Pero si haces, por ejemplo, el monthly data backup, no lo está guardando a tu computadora, lo está guardando a como en data export, so it's not in the cloud. Y tú puedes ir y tú puedes bajar esos archivos, y creo que sí hay un límite. Entonces, por ejemplo, cuando yo hago export de mi org, o lo he hecho en el pasado, me da 4 archivos. Entonces tengo que bajar 4 archivos, y esos 4 archivos juntos son todos los datos de org. Entonces eso ayuda, en vez de bajarlos todos en un file, Salesforce lo tiene como en diferentes, en el monthly data export te lo dan en diferentes archivos.
Pero no los descargas en tu máquina, los descargas en la nube, y de ahí tú ya decides qué descargar localmente, ¿no?
Exacto. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Y cuando lo haces por y lo descarga tu máquina, entonces tienes que saber con tus records. Ahí sí puedes ver cómo puedes tener problemas guardándolo. Porque ese sí va directo, pero data export se queda en el cloud.
Ok. Gracias.
Yo tengo también.
¿Sí?
Yo manejo mucho los controles de, algunos datos así en un sistema que se llama ERP.
Ajá.
Hay una opción ahí para hacer algunas modificaciones, transferencias o actualizaciones Pero ahí tengo la opción de hacer un parent item. Yo puedo hacer una regla para en todos los records que contengan en el que el contenido de algún field sea igual a algún valor que yo estoy buscando. En todos esos records yo puedo agregar, reemplazar, eliminar, cambiar, actualizar, etcétera. ¿Hay alguna opción igual en Salesforce para poner o sea, hacer la actualización masiva o algún movimiento masivo, pero en base a un parent item o algún parent field que tenga algún dato específico? No sé, todos los que estén en Los Ángeles los voy a actualizar, cambiar el representante, ¿no? Cambiar el lead, no sé.
Sí, hay una manera de hacer como el transfer record, lo he usado, o el master lead, que dice solo los records que contienen o el owner es tal persona, solo esos quiero mover. Eso sí hay unas opciones, pero creo que en Data Import Wizard y en Data Loader, tú tienes que hacer ese trabajo ya fuera de, o sea, yo uso reportes, ¿no? Yo hago un report de todas las oportunidades que tienen tal, pásame el ID y quiero cambiarles el parent a otra opción. Pero eso yo lo hago fuera, no nada en Excel. Pero sí hay unas opciones donde puedes hacer eso, pero es más que nada con estos, delete y transfer records. Y lo podemos ver ahorita. Muy buena pregunta.
O sea, ¿no se podría hacer un filtro de load?
Okay, so let's go practice. And hopefully, no, it's not going to log in. So give me 2 seconds. Okay. Ok, ya estamos. Ok, so ya entré. Este es mi org. Voy a abrir la ventanilla porque creo que no sé si se ve muy bien. Mi pantalla está súper grande. Ok. So, entramos a Setup y vamos a ver el Data Import Wizard. Yo todo lo busco en el Quick Menu. Lo pongo Import y aquí tengo Data Import Wizard. Ok. Y cuando entran a este, it's super easy. El Launch Wizard takes you through all of it. So, okay, I want to upload accounts. And I want to add new records. And I don't need to do matching. I don't want to trigger my workflow rules. Take my CSV, que es este, account upload, y este file, oops, abrí mal. Este file, yo ya lo arreglé, ¿no? So it's my Ciudad de México, Los Ángeles, everything looks good, great. I would tick that in here. Next. I say, okay, you have address, city, state, country field. Map it because I don't know what you want. Let's say it is the billing street. Okay. It is the billing city. The billing state. And the billing country. Okay. So we have 5 fields. We're adding new records. Here's it start. Okay. And when you do that, you get this message that says, click OK to view your import status on the bulk data load job page. And it takes you there. So it says, hey, Trisha, you're updating this. Look at your jobs. Records processed, 6 records, nothing failed. It took no time to complete. But this is where you would be able to see, okay, if you're uploading 50,000 records, if it failed, that means that you missed some kind of validation rule, most likely. Like your data was not how you were asking for it in the system. So, and I can show you, I'll show an example of that here. So, whoops. Okay, never mind. Okay, so that's the data import wizard, pretty easy, right? 3 steps. And now let's go into, if I want to import, I have something here that says my opportunities that I need to update. So can I do that in here? Can I update opportunities in the data import wizard?
Nope.
No.
No, because it's not an option. And I have another one here of leads that I need to import. So leads, can I import into here? Okay, now my leads, hopefully you guys like the names I chose. So we have El Zapato, Sin Dinero, Edificio, and El Bistec. We need to add them as leads, and we're going to call them. One of the fields here is a checkbox field. So I put email opt-out as 0 and 1. Let's see what happens. Just for fun. I'd say that, save that as yes, yes, no, no. What do you think is going to happen? Do we think it will save? If email opt-out is a checkbox field and I upload it as...
Dice, necesita ser 0 o 1.
Uh-huh. And then industry is a business field. And so we'll see what happens with that. Okay, so let's upload leads. I want to add new records. And let's put my lead upload here. Okay, so it says we need to map a couple of fields. It already figured out phone and company for me. So first name, last is last name. Email opt-out is, let's see. I thought I had it in here. Maybe not. Okay. Well, let's just map it and we'll show you. So if I don't map it, it's just not going to import it. And we'll see what happens here with industry. Okay. So it says only 4 records processed. I had 6 in there, right? So we can look at this and say, download the result and see what actually processed. If I wanted to go into these, I could look up these, look them up by these IDs, but something didn't go right. Oh, it did. Sorry, I only had 4. I thought I had 6. Okay. So I'm not doing this right, but anyway, if you did something wrong and your records failed, your data didn't match, you would get a records failed here. So let's try using data loader. Okay, and I didn't install this ahead of time. Don't kill me. Well, there's data loader IO. I thought there was. Yeah, so data loader is an application that you actually have to install. But the other thing that you can do is you can actually use this data loader IO. But I don't think I connected it. Sorry, guys, I missed some steps in setting up my org. So you're gonna have to give me a minute. Okay, so this is not the view that I showed you in the slides, but it still does the same things, right? So I can import, export, delete. It's all in here. So I'm going to go new task, and I want to import opportunities, let's say. Or actually, this is an update. So I already took an export of my org, and I said, okay, I have all of these opportunities. Trisha, I need you to change something in this opportunity because it's wrong. I need you to change the probability, let's say. Okay. So when I ran a report of these opportunities and I exported it. So I have all of the opportunity IDs. Now, an opportunity has to be tied to an account, right? So I also pulled the account ID, but I don't need it. If I needed to do anything with that, if I wanted to change the account, I would be able to do that with that ID. So I have an opportunity ID for all of these. And I'm the owner, account name, all of these. So let's say, hey, you know, we jumped the gun on some of these and we need to change the stage to closed one on all because they're actually old. It wasn't all of these that we needed to do. So if we're changing them all to closed one, you probably don't need to update the ones that are already closed one if you don't have anything to do there, right? So I'm just going to take the ones that are not closed one, which is this many. Keep them here, and I'm going to change that stage to closed one. Okay, and all I need for this update, so I'll get rid of this for now. So all I need for this update, I don't need the account because I'm not changing that. I'm not changing the owner. I'm not changing any of these fields. The only one I'm changing is stage, right? So clean up my Excel so I don't accidentally change something I shouldn't. So basically my upload file is this. These opportunity IDs, change the stage to closed one. So let's save that as a CSV file on my desktop. Okay. And now I can go in here and I can say, okay, I don't need to insert or upsert. I want to update because I already have the ID. I'm going to find opportunity, hit next, and then put in my records. So it already figured out here, my source header, my file says opportunity ID, that's going to opportunity ID. The stage is going to stage, and then it shows me what's the sample data that I have in those fields. Okay. So I have a total of 12 rows. Let's see what happens. So it's a little bit different. So it shows you here all of the tasks that you're running, any imports, exports, deletes, and or anything you have scheduled to run. Okay, so this one I like. Look, it says 12 successes and 0 errors. So if I click on this, it'll tell me that was able to update my opportunity ID, these opportunity IDs to stage closed one, right? So now if I were to go back into my org, all of my users would see that all of the opportunities, because I pulled all of the opportunities. So for them, they all say closed one, except this one. I don't know what I did there. So that's just some of the tools. And again, I didn't download the desktop part of Data Loader, but this is the online, the IO version that's available for you guys to use as well. Okay, so we imported and we updated some opportunities. Let's look at exporting. Okay, so if I want to set up a monthly export of all of my data to have a backup, this is what I would use. I have the export now or the schedule export button. So let's say I want to export it now. You have a lot of options. So Joanna, like when you were asking about file size, it depends. Maybe you don't want everything. Maybe you only care about campaigns, contacts. You can, leads and opportunities and some of those things. You can opt not to select everything, which will make your file size smaller. You can choose some of the things that you want, or if you hit this one, it just says all of the data. Okay, and then you would just start export, and it would take a while for that to happen. So it says, hey, it's in the queue. I'll let you know when it's done, and then you would be able to download those files. Any questions? I just want to get you familiar with it.
Trisha, gracias, Trisha. ¿Verdad que el anterior cuando hiciste con la otra herramienta, con el Data Import Wizard, donde no mapeaste el field, ese field no se importó, ¿verdad?
No se importó, no, porque tienes que tener un mapping. Entonces, si tú ves un Excel y solamente quieres, o sea, algunas de los y no todas, if you don't map it, it's not going to go through.
Sí, no, queríamos confirmar eso, pero sospechábamos.
El sistema no va a saber qué es lo que quiere. If you don't map it, no sabes where to do it. No va a crear un nuevo field.
Ok, gracias.
Ok, so tienes la opción de hacerlo, y aquí está, mira, 48 horas. So 48 hours after this, you can download it to your computer, right? If you don't do that, then it just goes away and you have to export again. Okay. And then we talked about mass transferring. So here, mass delete records. You have the option to mass delete accounts, leads, activities, contacts, cases, solutions, products, reports. So, Manuel, when you were asking if you could put in certain criteria, this is where you would do that. You can say, hey, I only want accounts where the name contains XYZ, right? And you can search for those. So let's just say, trying to find something. So billing city equals Los Angeles, okay? Because we uploaded those records. So then I do a search, and then it says, okay, here are 3 accounts that match your criteria. So I would select these 3 and say, okay, I'm going to delete those. Okay? So you have some options there. And you can play around with that and see what makes sense. Same thing with mass transferring approvals. The approver name, the submitter name is this. I'm going to find them first, and then I can transfer. Transferring records. You have all of these options to transfer records. The one I use the most is maybe transferring leads and accounts. So again, from user to user, from a queue to a user, from a user to a queue. You can look up, hey, all of the records owned by, I'm the only person in my org. So all the ones owned by Trisha, we're going to send them to a new user, right? And then, but all the ones owned by Trisha, but only the ones that are in Los Angeles or in Ciudad de Mexico, or only the ones that have a status that we haven't reached out to them yet, or only you can make all of these different filters, like you mentioned, in here. Okay. And then this one is for mass updating addresses. So if you want to change the country or the state, this one lets you do that a little bit easier here as well. So if you notice, there's a bunch of USA, US, all of that stuff, you can change it in here. Any questions on these tools? Okay. So again, it's not too often that you use them, but it is a lot of power. And so you have to really think through what you're doing, right? And biggest thing I can tell you is before you delete records, you should always do like a data export. One thing too, I'm not sure if you guys know, if I delete this, what happens to it? I'm the admin, so I have the ability to delete this record. What happens to it? Do we know? Is it gone forever? It's not. So I'll show you. If you go in here, I think I need to add it in here. If you add the recycle bin, if I accidentally as an admin go in and delete a bunch of records, if I go into the recycling bin, it's still here. And it's only going to be here for 15 days. So hopefully you figure out if you made a mistake within 15 days, otherwise you lose it forever. So I can have the option here to then restore it and say, okay, I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to go back. So this is really important. This is one of the reasons why you don't give your users delete access most of the time, unless you don't care. But for important data, you control when stuff gets deleted, and you have to make sure that you're thinking through your actions before doing them in the org. Okay. So the next couple of slides, and let me get back to just sharing my slides. Okay, so the next slides focus on customizing an org, because change is constant and adapt you must, says Yoda. Things are always going to be changing. So Barbara mentioned acquisitions, right? You got new teams coming in, new processes, or processes that people want automated. People are asking you for new fields because they need to capture new information that you didn't capture before, or you're adding in a whole new business unit. Those are just a couple of examples of changes that might happen where they're going to come to you and say, hey, this team needs this. Can you please help? And figure out how to, make this work for them. So we'll talk through a couple of examples, and then we'll actually go through and do the projects. So in this one, let's say, for example, that there's going to be a new strategy team added to your org. They're going to be providing support to sales and should have similar access to the sales team. They also want to have their own private chatter group. Okay. So we've learned enough that we know how to do this, right? What are some of the things we're going to have to do? First of all, to get people into the system, what do you have to do? They're going to need a password and a login, right? So what do you need to set up? Okay. You're going to need to set up the users, because otherwise, how are they going to get into the account? You got new team members and they're like, I don't know how to get into Salesforce. Okay, so we need to create users for the strategy team. That's going to require you thinking through what profile should they get? What permission sets do they need? Where do they belong in the role hierarchy? And do they need any sharing rules? That's all going to depend on the org-wide defaults of your org and your security model, right? So keep that in mind. That visibility opens up starting from the org wide defaults, going into the roles, sharing roles, all of that. And then we need to create a chatter group, right? Because they want to be able to chatter with just each other in a private group because they're special. So let's go in and do that. If I move to this tab, can you see my org? Yes, nodding heads. We see the org? Okay, good. Thank you. I can't tell. I haven't used Google's presented on Google Meet before. Okay, so let's go in here and let's create 2 new users. I like using NV stick. Okay, let's give him a username. He is part of the strategy team. Okay, we're gonna go in and say, I don't think I have the option actually to, okay, we'll call him support for now, right? And we'll give them a role and say that they're in the support team. Customer support North America. Okay, but in the real world, you would know, they would get a Salesforce license, you would know what type of profile they need, and you would know what role they're going into because it would be customized to your org. Okay, so let's go in here and let's save this user. Okay, NV stick. And then who else do we want in here? Let's put edificio, right? Edificio. So you guys remember how to do this, right? Pretty easy? Yeah, nodding heads. You know how to enter the users? Well, let's give him chatter free, just for fun. Make him. Okay. So we went in and we set up our users, and then they asked us to create a chatter group just for them. So we'll go into groups, create a new group, strategy team. Okay. It's a private group. They're the only ones that are going to be in it. And let's make, well, we'll just make me for now. Okay, if I wanted to give them an image, I could do that. I think we already have an image in here. I have a cat. I like cats. That's their image for their group. And we're going to add Eddie and Elvis to this. And you can choose if you want to make them members or managers. I don't want to be involved, so I'm going to make them managers. They can figure it out on their own. So now the strategy team has their own private group. They can see if they get membership requests, and then they're set up in their own group there. Cool. Pretty easy, right? Okay. All right, so let's see what else. We have a customer service team, and they want you to add a service plan start date and a service level field on the account object. They also need to have 2 different support processes and record types to handle incoming service cases, one for software support and one for hardware support. So this is a lot, but you guys went through the service, you went through support services or at one point, right? Support processes a couple of classes back. So we're going to refresh a little bit. And you've added new fields to objects, right? Those are the 2 things. We're being asked to add 2 new fields to the account object and to create 2 processes and record types for cases. Okay. So a big thing, whenever you're thinking through new fields, you're going to have some questions probably. So service plan start date, service level, that's all they told us. What kinds of questions would you ask? If they just told you those 2 things, what would you want to know as an admin before you can do this? Feel free to type it in the chat or unmute. Service plan start date. What type of field do you think that could be?
Date. Or
Okay.
date.
But you have 2 date fields, right? So you probably want to ask what level of detail they need. Do they want the date or do they want the date and time? You know, get a little bit more information. It's really good to just upfront know what they're looking for and like clarify that understanding so that you can create it correctly. And then service level. Maybe they didn't tell you this, but there are only 3 possible values. What kind of field would you use for that?
Pick list.
That's right, a pick list. And you probably want to confirm it can only be 1 value at a time, right? You can't have you can't select 2 of them. So pick list. Good. All right. And then there's no default value that we need. We just need a date field, and we're gonna have 2 options for pick list, gold and silver. Okay. So that's what we're gonna do. So let's go in here and let's go into our object manager. And we set on the account object, right? Okay. Fields and relationships. Want to enter a new field. And what did we say the first one was? Just a date, right? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and add a date field, and we're going to call it service plan start date. Okay. We would add some description in here. Service plan start date requested by X team to track service plans for support. Always important whenever you have more detail that you can add in here to add that. Okay. Is it always required? That's probably another question we should ask. Does every account need to have a service plan, date or start date? We're going to assume in this one it doesn't. Okay. And then who needs to see it? That's another good question. We don't know that. We need to ask that. Who needs to have access to this? Here, we'll just assume it's open. It can be visible to everybody. We're not concerned about who changes that, although in the real world we would be. Okay, and then what layouts do you want it to be on? So all of these things are things that when you're being asked, like, you need to find out more information, right? And then so we'll say marketing, sales, support, they all need to see this field. So let's save it. Now we need a new field. And we said it was going to be a pick list. Okay. And this one was service plan level. Okay. And I don't want to use one of my global pick lists. I'm just going to enter the values here. So I said gold and silver are the 2 options. Okay. So another question you might have is, should there be a default value? If you don't select gold or silver, do you assume silver, right? That's something you might want to know. Make it visible to everybody. We'll add it to all of the account layouts. Okay. Important to always go back and check your layouts. So I'll check one of these. I added it to all. Okay, and there it is. Service plan start date and service plan level. Cool. So we got one thing done, right? We got their new fields. But then what was the other thing they asked us to do? Create support processes and record types for software and hardware. So, pop quiz. What objects can have processes? Do you guys remember this? Not Hector. You're not allowed to answer.
I think case
Uh-huh.
and opportunities.
That's 2 of them, yes. There's one more.
And leads, I think.
And leads, that's right. So I kind of gave it to you because this is actually for leads, right? But it's leads, opportunities, and cases. Those are the 3 objects that can have processes. And the processes, if you remember, are what the values that you'll see in this little graphic at the top of the records, right? So it's a visual representation of what you need to get done, and you can click on one of these to change that status. Okay? All right, so let's go in and create these for the team. Okay, so we're back in here. We're going to set up. Again, I use the search for everything, guys. So I'm going to put in process. Look at that. Lead process, sales process. There's entitlement processes, but that's a little bit different. And support processes. Okay? So we're actually looking at support processes. And we're going to create 2 new support processes. Let's say they always have to start from a master. So I want one for software. Okay. I'm good with all of those. That's fine. I don't need to add or remove any of these. And then another one for hardware. And I don't need to change any of those. Okay, so we have 2 of those. And now we're going to go into our cases. And we need 2 record types. Okay, and we need one for software. And it's going to have the software support process. And I want it active. And I want everybody to have access to that. Okay, and one layout to all profiles. Let's use the support. Okay. And these are, again, the pick list values that you have. That's fine. I'm not concerned with that. I don't need to make changes. Now let's create another one for hardware and tie it to the hardware support process. Make that one active and available. Okay. Okay, so now we have 2 record types, hardware and software, and we have 2 support processes. Any questions? Okay. And the last one. So the sales team wants to be able to send a really nice looking email to their contacts directly from the contact record. So they're asking you to create a default email template that everybody can use that already populates the customer's first and last name. So we'll go into the org. And there is, I think there used to be a way to do this in classic templates, but let's try it here. Lightning, I think it was that, templates. Okay, so, wait, did I? Oh, sorry. So the steps are, first we create the Lightning letterhead, then we create the general email template, and then we can send pretty looking emails to all of our customers. So let's do that. I knew we started somewhere here. So letterhead. We have enhanced letterheads is where I was trying to go. I already created one, and we can use this one. I added the logo here for Trailhead, but I only have the first name. I didn't add the last name. So let's add first name and then add last name. So to add a field in here, you insert merge field, and you select the last name of the contact, right? Insert that. So now when I go to a record and I want to send them an email, it should auto-populate the first name and the last name of that person. And then this is the space for me to send whatever I want. And then at the end of my email, just in case I were to accidentally send this from my org, I put this as a learning environment. Great. So we'll save that letterhead. Okay. And then we'll go into support again. And we'll go to templates. Okay, and we're going to use the Lightning email templates. Oops, to the wrong place, didn't I? Email templates here, sorry. So it's not in setup. Okay, so then here was my general email template. I already created it. So, but you can see here, it's my general email template. I saved it to the public email templates folder. If I had different types of templates, I could change it. And I added here my letterhead, my new customer support case letterhead is what I have, right? I will leave the subject and everything else blank, hit save. Now, when I go into a contact, okay, and let's say it's Ashley James, and I go to send an email as a salesperson, I can go in here, and I think it's right here, insert, create, or update a template, and I can use the general email template, because this is ugly, right? Just powered by Salesforce, I don't like that. I want to give them an image of my company, and I want to say dear first and last name, and then it should auto-populate because we're sending it to Ashley James. We have her first and last name. It should send that way, okay? And then we would hit send from here. Are there any questions on how you would do that? Okay. So to recap, we talked about all of the different actions you can take to manage your data, some of the different tools like Data Loader and Data Import Wizard. We talked about data validation. The validation rules are going to run no matter what, so you have to make sure that it matches the record or the field types that you're importing. And we talked about backing up data as an export. And then we went through some business cases where you might be asked to customize an org, and how do we handle some of those different cases. So you guys are well on your way to being awesome admins. I'm really excited for all of you because this is a really great learning journey for you. And with that, are there any questions? I like cats. So, no questions? All right, I'll leave you with one more cat. Gracias. All right. I don't know how we're doing on time. I know Hector had to leave. So if anybody wants to stay after for office hours, I'm here. I'm available. I can stay on here, or you can shoot me another link. Up to you guys. But here to help you, whatever you guys need. We talked about this last time. You have a very big support system, right? So always ask for help. And Barbara says she can stay for a little bit as well. So I'll stop sharing. And you guys can just let us know if you have anything you need to work on, anything going on.
I would ask them what's been the hardest part so far for each one of them. What's something that you really struggle with? ¿Qué les ha costado más?
Yeah.
Nada, todo es fantástico y súper fácil.
No, sí está, o sea, cuando estás haciendo tus threads, le decía a Trisha, Que, por ejemplo, te quedan las dudas. A mí cuando hice esta parte de los support process y eso, me preguntaba, ¿por qué selecciono el máster, no? O sea, ¿por qué tiene que estar el máster allí y puedo seleccionar? O sea, cuando creaba uno veía que me aparecía el otro, pero esas dudas que te quedan ahí como, ¿qué sucede en tu organización cuando seleccionas el máster? Y esas cosas, ¿no? Esas son las dudas que quedan, que a veces no nos ayudan a comprender muy bien lo que estamos haciendo. Y otra de las cosas es que esta semana un amigo está iniciando una compañía de transporte que importa y exporta al país. Entonces yo estaba ahí vendiendo, yo estaba ahí compartiendo, no, mira, estamos tomando el curso y esto. Y él me pregunta, oye, ¿y tú cómo, y ustedes cómo ganan dinero? Y yo, buena pregunta, ¿no? O sea, ¿cómo eso? Y lo otro me dice, oye, ¿puedo manejar inventarios ahí en Salesforce? Y yo dije, bueno, pues supongo que si creo mi objeto y le meto los campos y todo eso, pues podría, ¿verdad? Pero ya al momento de hacer las prácticas, como lo puso Trisha, salen dudas que quizás tú creías que entendías, pero luego te quedas de, ay, ¿cómo se hacía? O sea, ¿cómo comenzar a hacerlo, no? Y no solo saber hacerlo, sino saber aplicarlo. Creo que es la parte compleja de esto. Por eso quería quedarme en los office hours para preguntarle esas dudas que te di.
Yeah, y muchas veces, se los dije la clase pasada, you're not going to break anything in Trailhead. So play with it. Change things. What happens if I don't choose master? You don't have another option unless you have something else already created. So you'll see that, right? But yeah, you're not going to break anything. So use it. Push it to its limits. Ask your questions in the system and figure out what happens.
A mí lo que me parece que ayuda es los ejemplos. Esta semana me junté con Wendy para revisar qué le costaba a ella trabajo, ¿no? Y una de las cosas que a mí siempre me pareció complicada y difícil es la seguridad. Entender la diferencia de profiles, permission sets, roles, hierarchy, sharing rules. A mí me parece difícil. Y si bien yo creo que la clase que dio Isabel estuvo muy, muy clara y muy buena, hasta que no lo ves como aterrizado, para mí fue difícil entenderlo, ¿no? Hoy lo entiendo mejor y aún así hay veces que me preguntan, ¿y por qué esta persona puede ver esto? ¿O por qué no puedo tener acceso a tal otra cosa? Y entonces ahí voy para atrás y digo, ¿por qué puede ver y de qué se trata? A toda la estructura le llamamos metadata, ¿no? Las tablas, los campos, como que toda la configuración, digamos. Y después los datos en sí es la data, ¿no? O los datos. Entonces, ¿de qué me está diciendo que no puede ver? ¿Es un registro que no puede ver? ¿O es un campo que no puede ver? ¿O es un objeto, ¿no? Una tab, por ejemplo. Entonces, eso ayuda un poco como a entender en dónde tengo que ir a buscar cómo solucionarle el problema. Y siempre hacer ejercicios con ejemplos yo creo que ayuda. Piensen, en Trailhead pueden hacer cualquier cosa, como dice Trisha, no rompen nada, ¿no? O sea, lo peor que puede pasar es que borren esa org o esa instancia y creen una nueva y empiezan de cero. Eh, pero piensen en un ejemplo, por ejemplo, ¿no? Puedo manejar inventario, entonces se inventan una fábrica y dicen, para esta fábrica le voy a crear una instancia de Salesforce. ¿Y qué necesita una fábrica? Bueno, un inventario de qué, ¿no? O sea, necesitas tener productos, necesitas tener a lo mejor cuántos tienes en stock, cuándo necesitas comprar, quién los puede ver, si tienes gente de ventas, gente de mantenimiento, gente de administración, de contabilidad, y ahí vas creando como una empresa ficticia y puedes ir aplicando todas las cosas. Yo creo que eso ayuda. No sé, ¿qué les parece? ¿Qué más les cuesta trabajo?
¿Todos están al día con sus tareas? ¿O hay unas que les faltan?
Sí, hay algunos, Trisha, que tienen un poquito de atraso y se están reuniendo con sus mentores para generar así compromisos. Y bueno, la verdad es de que, bueno, algunos tienen pues también lo de la escuela, tienen exámenes finales. Estuve platicando también con unos chicos la semana pasada y me decían de eso, ¿no? Que tienen por ahí que entregar también actividades. Y bueno, más que nada el compromiso que ellos hacían era, o fue, que en estas próximas, creo que estas 2 semanas más, tienen ellos vacaciones. Entonces, la mayoría se comprometió a dar el mayor avance, ¿no? Para estar a la par con los demás. Pero sí, yo creo que sí fue bueno la junta o la reunión con ellos y sus mentores, pues para definir el compromiso. Pero sí, ahí la llevan los chicos.
Si durante el spring break es necesario que tengamos también, no clase, pero office hours para ayudarles con la tarea, nos avisan. Yo estoy disponible los fines de semana para ayudarles y aunque no soy la mejor para siempre responder en WhatsApp, si ponen algo también en el grupo, I'll try my best. Pero para mí es como que no te puedo contestar en mensaje porque no me vas a entender. Mejor vamos a hacer un Google Meet y lo vamos a ver y lo vamos a hacer en Trailhead, ¿no? Eso siento que ayuda mucho, pero si tienen algo así, ustedes, o sea, con toda confianza lo ponen en el WhatsApp o nos mandan mensaje y vemos cómo les podemos ayudar.
Martín es muy rápido para responder.
Sí, sí he visto.
Martín
Sí,
tiene
no, yo
como
lo veo
una...
el fin del día y yo, oh, ok.
Sí, él es súper veloz. Yo también soy lenta para contestar los WhatsApp. La más lenta.
¿Qué más, chicos? ¿Preguntas, dudas, comentarios?
Estuvo muy padre la clase de Trisha.
Ok, qué bueno.
Sí, creo que estuvo chido porque con las prácticas que hicimos, o sea, ¿cómo se dice? Se asientan ¿cómo se dice? Ah,
¿Dudas?
los conceptos, las dudas pueden salir durante la práctica, que nada más, ¿cómo se dice? Pues exponiendo un tema, ¿no? Haciendo salen más dudas. Así. Pues estuvo padre. Me gustaban los nombres de los contactos.
Él dice, tengo hambre. Voy a ir acá, voy a hacerme algo de comer ahorita, porque ya ya al final cuando tenía que poner los nombres de los nuevos usuarios, solo me acordé del bistec porque tenía hambre. Pero,
Ok, bueno, está bien. Yo creo que, no sé si estén bien con ustedes, Trisha, Bárbara, que tomen el tiempo para que puedan comer algo y después ya siguen con lo de Office Hours. No sé cómo lo ven ustedes. Por mí está bien. Ujú.